So you're telling me you found an alien hominid-like empire living in the desert?
Yes, Joe, you won't believe what I saw. It all began when I developed an advanced all-terrain vehicle equipped with a powerful cooling system that would allow me to be able to drive into parts of the desert that have yet to be discovered. And so in 2018, we decided to put it to the test. Many miles in, we were brought to a stop as we reached the top of this dune. We came across hundreds of these strange creatures in the middle of the desert.
What were they doing?
I don't know, but they began approaching us, looking into the vehicle. Joe, I've never seen anything quite like it. We began getting very concerned, and so I just floored it away from the area in fear. And I wish we would have just headed back to camp, but we went back the next day.
What else do you know about these alien-like hominids? Like, what were they even doing on Earth?
Buddy, just listen for a minute. You won't believe me if I tell you. A day later, we couldn't stop thinking about what we had just discovered, and so we got back into the all-terrain vehicle and headed back into the undiscovered parts of the desert. As we reached the top of this dune, none of these creatures were nowhere to be seen. So we put on our thermal suits and stepped out of the vehicle to inspect the region around us. And so we walked for about 5 minutes until we find a massive mine shaft descending below the desert. What we found was shocking, and we all ventured inside and went down with no idea what we would find. Brother, we'd navigated through this mine shaft for what felt like hours. And as we descend further, we passed something so horrific. We started to find these strange markings on the walls. They looked like these alien symbols, each carved into the walls of this mine. We carried on until we reached the end of this mine shaft leading down to this huge crater lined with zip lines that declined down. And so we all hooked ourselves up onto these lines, took one look at each other like there was no going back, and so we lowered ourselves down into the uncharted depths. We went into the bottomless pit, and brother, I wish we had just turned back. It was horrific. We had no idea of where we were heading, but the further we went, the more we began to realize it was so horrific. I can hardly bring myself to think about it. It was some sort of a underground network that they were living in. They were creating this empire underneath us, harnessing our resources to become stronger.
Wait, so you're telling me that these alien hominids were living beneath us in the caverns without us knowing?
Yes, Joe. And so we detach ourselves from the lines, and I can see many of these hominid aliens living in this underground network. Joe, you won't fathom the size of these underground tunnels.
How big was it?
I mean, it was huge as they began harnessing our resources to construct these advanced weapons. And my colleague said to me, "Why are they creating these warfare tools?" And at that point it hit. Eyes widened in fear as we both looked at each other in disbelief, fully knowing these species were preparing for war. Steadily approaching closer, that's when I saw it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. We slowly walked through these networks of tunnels that they had perfectly excavated, and just all of these weapons and networks being constructed was making me very concerned with the behavior of these species. But we walked up to something that caught my eye. They were some sort of incubators carved into the walls. Our gaze widened with dread, with my heart racing erratically as we looked at each other like they were creating more of these alien hominids. It just kept going. I mean, there must have been thousands, each growing inside this separate incubator. We just carried on, slowly approaching the advanced weapons they were creating. They kept giving us strange looks as we walked past them as we didn't belong, and at that point I wish we had just turned back, but we carried on. It was then that we realized we had messed up. I turned around to find about a dozen of these hominid species all zeroed in on us. They forcefully threw us into one of the cells, and in that moment panic surged as we quickly realized no one was coming for us within this cavern. We were trapped, held captive below the depths of the earth where no one would find us, and so my colleagues are trembling in fear as we're trying to figure out a way to escape. And then it hit me. They were heading for the core. I look over to my friend as we both stand there in silence with his face drained with color. These alien hominid creatures were excavating these tunnels to harness the earth's core. And so we desperately look around the cell, looking for any weak points within the metal. But then I heard the sound of terror, sending shivers down my spine. I could see my partner horrified by what he'd seen, and so slowly we got closer to find him. Just thinking about it now gives me goosebumps. We carefully walk over to find many of these skeletons within this cell. At first glance, I thought they were animal remains, but as I looked closer, they were human bones. In that moment, thoughts raced through my head. Are they going to eat us? and whose human bones laid scattered within the shadows. I looked at my colleagues and I'm like, we need to get out now.